Welcome back to a year of Final Fantasy in the month of Siren. Today we're going to be talking about the one and only Nobuo Uematsu, the creator of the Final Fantasy music as we know it today. As I said before, today we're going to take a look at one of the most important parts of a franchise, the music, of course. We're talking about the music of Final Fantasy, though, in this case, and specifically the person who created it and made it well known, Nobuo Uematsu. There have been other people that have worked on Final Fantasy over the years, but whenever you hear music in Final Fantasy, you know it's Uematsu. So he's the composer that we're going to talk about. Nobuo Uematsu was born on March 21st in 1959 in Hochi, Kochi Prefecture, Japan. He taught himself how to play the piano when he was 12 due to his influence of Elton John of all people. He eventually joined a Square in 1986 and started what would be his life-defining career. For 18 years, he composed for the company mostly on Final Fantasy, but he also dabbled in a few of the other series as well, such as the Saga games and, of course, one of my favorite, he helped Yasunori Mitsuda work on Chrono Trigger as well, Mitsuda being the lead composer on the Chrono series as a whole. Within the realm of video games, if we look back on the very biggest franchises such as your Zelda, Final Fantasy, Mario, we see that they all have one huge thing in common, and that is music. The music is memorable as well as catchy. I've come to speculate that most modern games, they have the ability to use orchestras and these very powerful music techniques. They aren't limited by space or anything like that anymore, so we don't have very memorable tunes that pop up because it's all possibly overcomposed with all these lavish instruments and melodies. And while I do think composition and orchestration is very good for a song, something that really sticks with you needs to be very simple. It's why pop songs stay in your head for such a long time, because they have a very simple base to work off of. And I think that's what the earlier systems forced the composers to do. They had to be extremely catchy, they had to be very short and snappy, and most of all, the games were associated with those soundtracks. I mean, who doesn't know Mario or Zelda, and again, Final Fantasy, what we're looking at now? Songs that are simple, but you remember them forever is something that is very difficult to accomplish, and I think Uematsu was one of the best composers to achieve success in this way. Now, I could possibly spend hours and hours talking about which songs are the best from which individual games, but to save time, I'm only going to go over a few, and in fact, you've probably heard them if you've been watching my videos. These are what I believe are his most influential works, the things that define Final Fantasy, at least musically. The first song I want to talk about basically defines the game and really the franchise and series as a whole, and that's the Prelude. This particular song is just as important as the job systems, white mages, black mages, Cid, the Highwind family, Chocobos. It just defines Final Fantasy as much as any of those other things do. The song is also interesting as it's actually been expanded with newer phrases as the series has gone on. It is the textbook definition of iconic, and the structure of it is very simple. It's just an arpeggio going up various different octaves depending on which game and then coming back down. Of course, like I said, they've expanded on it, but that is the essence of it, and it's pure and it's simple and it is memorable. The second song I'd like to talk a little bit about is as influential as the Prelude in my opinion, and that's the Prologue. Now, it's a song that appears at the end of all of these videos. This is my personal favorite Final Fantasy song. It has a pure feeling of adventure, and it's just captured in this song so well. Again, the song is very simple, but can be embellished upon almost infinite amount of ways, because every game that has come out, except for Final Fantasy 13, has taken their own unique spin on it. So the Prelude and the Prologue song are fantastic. And to touch on a third song, it's probably the most defining feature of Final Fantasy. Yes, the Prelude everyone knows, but really it is the victory theme. Not all games have used the same theme, but they mostly use some sort of variation on whenever you beat a battle or you level up, everyone knows it. It is the Final Fantasy fanfare. One notable entry is the Eyes on Me theme from Final Fantasy VIII, which Uematsu composed. It was the first video game song to win Song of the Year Western Music at the Japan Gold Disc Awards in 1999 1999. Uematsu also put together his own rock band known as the Black Mages, which play rock and heavy metal versions of most of the popular songs. All in all, the Black Mages had 3 albums released before disbanding on August 7th, 2010. Uematsu himself has also participated in many different tours over the years using different groups beyond the Black Mages. Uematsu left Square in 2004 to establish his own production studio named Smile Please. He still composes video game music, but is no longer tied intimately to Square. That being said, he does still compose for Final Fantasy under third-party contracts and the like. Notably, his one exception to Final Fantasy is that he had nothing to do with Final Fantasy XIII. While Final Fantasy XIII's soundtrack is great in its own right, it is definitely not Uematsu's style, and that jars a lot of people whenever they pick up a Final Fantasy game and hear something that is just so different and unique. Again, not bad, but different. So as we wrap this video up, all I can say is that few composers compete with the fame that Uematsu has in the industry. I hope I can speak for all of us when I say thank you, Uematsu, for the fantastic music you've provided throughout the years. I couldn't imagine Final Fantasy without you. Next time in the month of Siren, we're going to tackle the mobile game Crystal Defenders. So until next time, Crystal Warriors, keep on gaming.